Today I'm going to show you how I made these neat little Hesco barriers for quick battlefield terrain for under $5. Today's build is going to be made with three things: these neat little craft cubes that I got from the dollar store, some shelf liner, also from the dollar store, and some hot glue. Alright, so this shelf liner is actually really awesome for this kind of application. It's got this neat little mesh pattern. And if you look up a Hesco barrier on Google or an internet search, you'll see that it's basically a burlap sack that's surrounded by a metal mesh filled with sand or stones. So we're going to cut some strips out of this mesh to be our kind of burlap wrapped around these cubes. Now the cubes are going to kind of be a form for the barricades and barriers that we're going to be making. So I've cut these into little strips and then cut them to fit wrapped around the block, and then I'm doing two wraps. Now I cut these into two sections so that I can line up the mesh to go the opposite direction on the second wrap. This will make it a lot easier to disguise the cube on the inside. Alright, once the single wide is done, I'm going to glue a piece of mesh in between two blocks. This will just kind of help it give a little bit of extra thickness to kind of match up with the other blocks to kind of keep everything even spacing when we use them on the battlefield. Now, since I'm using the wax paper here to kind of push the block down into to make sure it doesn't stick to my table, it kind of pulls the hot glue through the meshwork, and since I don't want that to show through, I'm going to use the tip of the hot glue gun to kind of melt the hot glue back into the recesses of the mesh, just to make sure that it doesn't stay visible and we don't just have flat sides on the blocks. Now once those are glued on, we're going to fill the top with some hot glue and then kind of press in the top with a little bit of filler Pebbles that I got from the dollar store as well. Now the ones I found were kind of little broken glass chunks, but you're more likely to find little stone pebbles instead. Either one works. This is just kind of what the dollar store near me had. Now the hot glue will hold these in place for now, but some of them are going to be a little bit loose. So we're going to use a little bit of super glue and just kind of dab it on the top of each one, and that's just really going to lock everything in. Once the super glue is dry, these are never going to come out and will be really nice little modular pieces to have on the field. Now we're going to use some burnt umber to kind of paint the entirety of the outside. Now we want to get this into all the little nooks and crevices in the meshwork on the outside of the cubes, just to kind of help disguise anything that might still be visible through the meshwork. And this will really build up a foundation to do some dry brushing and really sell the kind of burlap mesh sack that would be wrapping around the stones that are holding everything in place. Now, because I wanted to keep this build cheap, I didn't add anything to be the metal mesh grating on the outside. but you could definitely follow that up with some cross-stitch mesh or a little bit of aluminum mesh wire if you happen to have some on hand. And then we're going to follow that up with a medium dry brush of raw sienna. While that's drying, I'm going to use a pair of tweezers to hold everything in place while I do a double coat of Artist Loft Gray over all of the stones and glass on the top. Once that's dry, we're going to follow it up with a light dry brush of natural gray. Then we're going to do a light coating of Agrax Earthshade. This will give it a lot of shadow definition and just kind of finish out the paint job. And here we are with the finished product. Alright, there was a lot in that one little bag and was able to make a whole lot of these little barricades. As you can see, there's a whole lot of different combinations and ways that you can use them to make quick little scatter terrain for your tabletop wargame. So please everyone, hit that like button, subscribe for future content, comment in the comments section, and we will see you all next episode.